Okay, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum everyone. I hope you are all doing great, inshallah. As always, okay, as always, I would like you people to tell me if you can hear me and if my screen is visible.
Walaikum assalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. This screen is visible and your mic.
Okay, that is wonderful. Okay, so Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Without wasting any time, let us start with the session because, as always, unfortunately, Google Meet has limited our duration for each class. We are only limited to an hour session, and then we have to restart, which is something I don't like, and it is problematic for the students. So we will begin with this session, okay? And today's topic, as is visible on your screen, is nature versus nurture, about the historical controversies and debates that surround the idea of innateness, okay? And this idea actually came to me from one of the quotes of Plotinus. He is the Jewish philosopher of the 3rd century AD. He actually came in the Roman era. Okay, and he is one of the major commentators on the philosophy of Plato. Okay, and in one of his works, in his commentaries on Plato, he says, "He who knows himself will also know from whence he is derived." Okay, and this quotation really spurred in me the curiosity to delve into several topics, one of which was the idea of innateness. Okay, and in the forthcoming slides you will see where exactly and how exactly the idea of innateness, the idea that we have some things from the beginning, okay, we have certain qualities, certain characteristics by the virtue of being born in this world. We have not acquired them, we have not done any effort, okay, we have not put forth any effort to acquire them. Rather, we possess them, okay, without any reason, in a sense, okay, in a sense. So the following will be the outline of the lecture. Okay, at first we will go into the introduction and background of the topic. What exactly is the idea of innateness? What are the two camps? Okay, nativism and empiricism. And then we will start to go and delve into the different debates. Okay, the debate between Empedocles and Anaxagoras, who are two Greek philosophers. And then we will discuss what is an active and passive mind, because these two ideas are very important and pivotal actually to the forthcoming debate between Descartes, Locke, Leibniz, Kant, Chomsky, and so on and so forth, because these ideas are common to the rationalist and empiricist thinkers. Okay, rationalist thinkers are those who say that they basically believe that the primary source of knowledge, okay, the primary source of understanding is the mind. It is the way we think. Okay, this is the idea of rationalism. But the empiricists, on the other hand, say that the primary source of learning, of understanding, of acquiring knowledge is experience. It is seeing with the five senses. It is touching, tasting, seeing, hearing, okay, and tasting. These are the five senses. So these are the two camps, and the idea of active and passive mind are crucial to understanding these two camps. Fourthly, then we will discuss the arguments of Descartes, okay, in the defense of innateness. He says that basically we have innate ideas, okay, and then we will discuss Jean Locke's counter to Descartes, and that will be followed by Gottfried Leibniz's rebuttal to Locke's ideas, okay, which he thoroughly analyzes in his works. And then we will have a brief look at the Kantian categories, okay, imperative categories, and how he basically, what exactly actually he says about innateness, because his ideas are not very much contributory to this topic, okay. he is more concerned with epistemology, but he just side slips this idea. Okay, he doesn't give it much thought. He just says that this idea of innateness is irrelevant. Okay, because he focuses on other things. He says that we don't need to look at the origin, okay, of innateness. We just need to understand what exactly it is. And then we will understand Chomsky's defense in terms of his universal grammar and the syntactical structure of language, okay? And that will be followed by Thomas Wright. Now, Thomas Wright came in the era of Kant and Leibniz, okay? He came way before Chomsky. So he was born 200 years or 300 years before Chomsky. But the reason I put him after Chomsky is because the argument of Chomsky is somehow actually countered by Thomas Wright's naive realism. That is why I put it after Chomsky. And then we will look at Peter Kurter's folk psychology, okay? And finally, I will present my own argument from the which I simply term the argument from instincts, and then we will look at the questions and go into some interesting things. And one thing I want to mention, okay, this session is for you people, okay? You can ask questions, you can also add a point, okay? It is not necessary just to ask question, but it will be more, it will be better if you ask questions, because then it will clarify the things to you, and also clarify your doubts, and also clarify the topic to other people. But you can also add points, you can add comments, you can add your own ideas, okay? If you are from another field, maybe IR or sociology or anything, I didn't have time to present the arguments in terms of history, like the ideas of Foucault, of Giambattista Vico, on whom I have delivered a lecture as well, and sociologists as well, such as Anthony Giddens and many other people, and ethnographers actually, because then the lecture would be too long. Okay, so I did spend some time on the outline this time because I thought it will help you all to understand the session better. Now, let us come to the introduction, okay? So, in the history of philosophy, there is a focus on the idea of innate, okay? The innateness, basically. And the question is whether, could you please mute your mic? Okay. Yes. So, there is a debate over the idea of innateness, okay? And the question is, does our inherent nature, okay, हमारी फितरत, does our inherent nature include any ideas, okay? Do we have any ideas by nature, innately, or concepts, or categories, or anything which is a part of us naturally? Or do we just learn everything? Do we learn things by looking at the world, okay? And get all our information and knowledge from perception, okay? And perception, remember, this word perception is related to the five senses. We perceive through the five senses, okay? So the nativists defend some variant of the first option. In other words, nativists are those people who say that there are innate ideas, ideas which are natural, innate, internal to us, while empiricists lean or incline towards the second, okay? So empiricists basically say that whatever we learn, whatever knowledge we acquire is actually through the five senses, okay? And the innateness question is very important, okay? It has both practical and theoretical implications, because several things such as morality, for example, when we look at the argument of Immanuel Kant, we will see that his argument for morality is simply, he says that morality is innate, okay? So if we simply disqualify the idea that we don't have, that we have any innate ideas, then Immanuel Kant will be unable to justify his moral foundations, okay? And the same is the case for religion and epistemology and metaphysics and many other things, okay? So now, what do the empiricists and the nativists say, okay? The nativists basically emphasize the role of inheritance, okay? In other words, they say that certain things are hereditary in nature. They are like genes in a sense, okay? Could you please mute your mic? Okay, I appreciate that. I feel like I'm sitting near a road, and there are horn sounds and there are dogs near me. I feel like I'm sitting in a restaurant ordering pizza, which is not coming on time. So, so we were looking at the nativists. So the nativists basically say that certain parts of human nature are inheritable. Okay, they are hereditary. They are passed on to the next generation, just like DNA. Like sometimes when a child is born, we say, "Oh, look at him or look at her. Her eye color is like her mother." Okay, or we say, "Oh, look at that person. He talks just like his father." Okay, this is what we mean by inheritance. Okay, certain things are inherited, but the empiricists emphasize the role of experience. Okay, now we must remember the empiricists, which often people misunderstand, do not say that experience is the only source of knowledge. Okay, both the rationalists, okay, and empiricists agree that there is the need of mind and experience combined. However, how they differ is that one says that the primary source of knowledge is the mind, while the other says that the primary major source of knowledge is experience. Okay? And this idea very much relates to the idea of human nature, because whenever even in Urdu we say na that ये तो इंसानी फितरत है. So when we say that this is human nature, all of these ideas are related to innateness and nativism. So for example, in practical applications, if you look at the IR theories, okay, such as realism, in which the human nature, the first assumption of realism in IR is that humans are selfish. Okay, this is an innate idea. We say that humans are born selfish. Okay, and the second theory, second most popular theory, or you can say third nowadays, is liberalism. Okay, which simply says that human nature is altruistic, it is cooperative. And even in second wave feminism, in which there is the idea of women men distinction. Okay, and I don't mention third wave feminism because it is founded on post-structuralist ideas, matlab postmodernist ideas. Okay, they don't accept the idea of human nature. So these things are crucial. Okay, because if you say that there are no innate ideas, then you cannot actually defend realism and liberalism. Matlab, you cannot even believe in these theories. Why? Because they are all based on the idea that there are innate ideas. So if you reject innate ideas, it means you reject a lot of these theories, such as realism and liberalism and even second wave feminism. Okay, now the first debate, which concerns innateness, is between Empedocles and Anaxagoras. Okay, and the first one is a poet, the second one is a thinker. I just termed him as a thinker, but he is a philosopher. Okay, so both of these two people actually present contrasting pictures. Okay, contrasting pictures. For Empedocles, the poet, okay, the first person which I have mentioned in my slides, he says that the mind is a reflection of word. In other words, when we look at the word through our mind, okay, the reality, the things that we see are simply reflected through our mind. For example, okay, imagine you have a friend in front of you, and you have a mirror. You hold up the mirror to your friend. Okay, imagine this, and she says, "Oh, my hair is frizzy." Okay, like curly, I mean. Okay, so now she can see herself in the mirror, right? Just like that, Empedocles says that our mind is like a mirror. Okay, it reflects reality. It doesn't bring any change into it. Okay. However, Anaxagoras disagreed. He said that no, whenever we look at the word is actually changed through our mind. Our mind is like a lens. It is not like a mirror. It is like a lens. Okay, the way you look at the word, it appears different to you because your mind is a lens. Okay, so like आपने ये बात सुनी है that however a person is, that is how a word appears to them. Okay, जिसकी जैसी mentality होती है, that is how the word appears to them. This is a simple proverb which is related to the debate. Okay, and this debate actually started most prominently with Socrates. Okay, and this is the paradox of inquiry, which is mentioned in Plato's Meno. Okay, Meno is like the name of Plato's book. Okay, dialogue, उसने dialogue लिखी है. And this argument comes up. Okay, now this is very interesting. Socrates in Meno, okay, Meno is the name of the book. He says that if we want to understand the nature of something, X, okay, maybe it is X. Let's say we want to understand the nature of something, then it only makes sense that we don't know that thing. Okay, so if you want to know what is innateness, if you want to know what is the name of your friend, okay, then it means you don't know the name of your friend. So now there's a problem, because if we want to know the name of our friend, then we cannot verify it. Okay, now this is this is a little bit confusing, but if you don't know something, you don't know it. Okay, but imagine you read one book on the name of your friend. How will you know whether the name you learned about your friend is correct or not? Because you don't know her name, right? So you have no way to verify whether the name you learned about her is right or wrong, right? And this is the paradox of inquiry. You are stuck in a paradox. If you don't know, you cannot verify. If you cannot verify, you cannot know, right? And this is why Plato gave his own answer, okay, which is known as the reminiscence theory of knowledge. Now this idea is known by different names. Some call it a recollection theory, but the reminiscence theory of knowledge I have taken from the introduction to the history of psychology by Hergenhan. So I just thought that this name is a bit better. And that is Plato's solution. We might go into that another time, but for simplicity's sake, it simply says that knowledge is a part of us. Okay, knowledge is inside us. All of the words knowledge, or at least some knowledge, is inside us, but we have forgotten it. Okay, so if we tell somebody, we try to remind them of those knowledge, they will automatically learn them. Okay, and this is why we call it recollection, because the knowledge is inside there, but we are trying to recollect it, to remember it, the knowledge which we have forgotten. Now, the concept of active and passive mind, what exactly is this, and how is it related to our topic? So basically the empiricists postulate, or they posit, okay, matlab they believe in a passive mind. Okay, now what is passive mind? Passive mind, in simple words, is that the mind is like a storage facility. Okay, it stores everything. ठीक है ना? The mind looks at the word and simply stores things, but the active mind looks at the word and interprets it, changes it, transforms it. Okay, so the reason it is called the passive mind, okay, the empiricists who believe that experience is the primary source of knowledge, they posit, or they believe in a passive mind. Why? Because they think that we learn through experience. So when we learn through experience, the mind only saves those experiences, only saves that knowledge. But the rationalists, the nativists, okay, who believe that we have some innate knowledge, they say that no, we have an they basically believe in an active mind, and they say that when we look at the word, we interpret it, because the mind is active, it is thinking, it is reflecting, it is judging. Okay, whenever you look at the word, you are always making a decision. Matlab, do you think it is possible to look at something without making any single decision at all? I don't think that is feasible. Like cognitively and psychologically speaking, it is inconceivable in a sense to look at the word and not make any decision or any judgment, to not pass any kind of thinking on anything. Okay, that, at least to me, seems literally impossible. And this is what the rationalist nativists think, or at least present the idea of passive mind. Okay, they think about the passive mind and what it really is. And now we come to Descartes' rationalist nativist postulation. Okay, his idea that we have innate ideas, we have innate principles. Okay, now Descartes is a rationalist, nativist. Simple बता रहा हूँ, nativist मतलब who believes we have innate ideas, empiricist who doesn't believe we have innate ideas. Okay, so Descartes found that some ideas were experienced with such clarity that we could not have found them from experience. Okay, some ideas, according to Descartes, were so clear, so evident, so simple, that he said that they just existed inside us. It is not conceivable that we experience them. Okay, so for example, just a rough example. If I say 1 plus 1 equals 2, okay, so to us it is very simple. We all know that 1 plus 1 equals 2. Okay, this is arithmetic, basic arithmetic. So according to Descartes, such kind of thinking would be innate. Why? Because we don't need experience to learn about them. Okay, we don't depend on our 5 senses to know that 1 plus 1 equals 2. Okay, we know them innately, logically, from our mind, pure rationalistically. Okay, and that is why he said that something perfect could not come from something imperfect. So imagine 1 plus 1 equals 2. This is a perfect answer. Okay, 1 plus 2 equals 3. It is a perfect answer. And according to Descartes, a perfect thing, okay, a very perfect thing, cannot come from an imperfect thing. And this is an obvious idea. Okay, this is basically Parmenides' principle: from nothing, nothing comes. Okay, so or in other words, in Arabic, this is just in English translation, but they say that something bereft of a quality cannot produce it. Okay, so you don't need to memorize all these things. You just need to understand these basic things, the basic things which you can understand. Okay, so Descartes says that we cannot derive something perfect from an imperfect. And that is why, because the mind can think about perfect ideas, because for example, okay, the mind can think about God, the mind can think about justice, adl, beauty, perfection, geometry, arithmetic. All of these are perfect things, and the mind can think about it. So according to Descartes, he said, if we can think about perfect things, how is it that the imperfect word is producing them? If we learn from experience, experience is never perfect, remember? So in other words, experience could not have produced these ideas in our mind. And that is why he said we have innate qualities. Okay, and he also gave this simple example. Okay, I have just elaborated it further. When you put a pencil or a stick in a glass of water, you see that the stick or the pen is actually bent. There's a slight bend, in the stick, or at least in the mirror image of the stick inside water. You might have seen this experiment in the physics books. Okay, so Descartes used this example, this experiment as an example to claim that our experience is imperfect, right? Because we know the stick is straight, but it only appears bent to us inside water. So Descartes said that experience is not reliable. So what we need to do is, whenever we see something or we hear something, in other words, we use our 5 senses, we need our logic, our mind, to verify that our experience is true. Okay? Now, next we will come to the radical empiricism of John Locke. Okay? Now, John Locke countered the idea of Descartes. Okay? And according to him, he said that although the content of mind is derived from sensory simulation, the operations of the mind are not. Okay? So he actually differentiated between two things: the thinking of mind and the perception of mind. Okay? The mind receives data from the world, and then the mind acts on it. So the operations of the mind are part of human nature. They are innate. ठीक है ना? Basically, he was saying that when we look at the world, we receive some signals from the outside. So this receiving signals, receiving data, receiving senses is a separate thing. But when it is received and the mind thinks on it, reflects on it, this is a separate thing. Therefore, when the mind thinks on ideas, this is innate. The thinking of mind is innate. Okay, but the data which the mind receives from the world that is based on experience, because mind depends on experience. The mind itself is dependent upon sensory stimulation, sensory data from the outside. Okay, only when the mind receives data from the outside can the mind think on that data. So experience comes before logical thinking, and this was the argument of Jean Locke. Okay, now there's another philosopher as well, and he is French, Condillac. Okay, he says that if we bear in mind that comparing, judging, discerning, having abstract ideas and ideas of number and duration, knowing general and particular truths, are only different modes of attention, that having passions, loving, hoping, wishing, are only different modes of desire, we should conclude that sensation contains within it all the faculties of knowledge, and it simply means innate cognitive faculties, innateness. Okay, now Condillac was a sensationalist. Okay, we will not discuss here who is a sensationalist, but in short, they believed that sensations, external sensations, are the source of knowledge, not the mind, not logical thinking. Okay, next. So now we will come to the defense of innateness by Leibniz, okay, the German philosopher and mathematician. I have briefly mentioned the ideas of the French philosopher Nicolas de Malebranche, who was a French, and he basically believed neither. he neither believed in rationalism, okay, or nativism, neither in empiricism, because he said that knowledge actually, or the ideas that we have actually come only from God. Okay, God reveals these ideas to us. So neither from experience nor from logical thinking do we receive our ideas. But our main focus here is Leibniz. Okay, because Leibniz say that there is nothing in the mind that is not first in the senses except the mind itself. In other words, okay, this is how he countered Locke. He says that everything is based on experience, except what the mind thinks about itself. ठीक है ना? Whatever the mind thinks about its own self, that is innate. Okay, so instead of passive mind, Leibniz believed that Locke proposed. Leibniz postulated a highly active mind, and he said that because ideas cannot be created by anything physical like brain, they must be innate. ठीक है ना? So his argument is almost the same to Descartes. Descartes was saying that perfect ideas cannot be generated by imperfect experience. Therefore, there must be innate ideas. But Leibniz says that because abstract ideas cannot arise from physical brain, therefore the ideas that we have must be innate. Okay, so this was his argument. And then we have Kant. We don't need to discuss his ideas in any depth, because number one, there is debate on whether he's a nativist or anti-nativist. In other words, whether he supports the idea that we have innate experiences or whether we don't have innate categories. Okay, now of course, okay, so now Kant has a conception of innateness because his categorical imperatives, okay, they are innate. But there is still debate, okay, because Kant doesn't talk a lot about this debate, and he says that this controversy is basically meaningless. It doesn't concern us. But a lot of the thinkers actually are of the opinion that Kant actually is a nativist. He believes in innate ideas, okay. And as I mentioned in the outline session, in the outline part, that the moral imperatives मतलब सही गलत में फ़र्क, ठीक है ना? The difference between right and wrong. Kant bases his idea of morality, or the difference between good and bad, based on innate conceptions. Okay, he says that morality is innate. So, well, it almost shows that he is a nativist. But there is debate again, okay? It is up to the scholars. Now, Chomsky's defense, okay? How does Chomsky argue? Now, look, we went over these several things, but if you have noted here, there is a defense and response pattern throughout history, okay? Empedocles say defense innateness, and Anaxagoras attacks it. And then Descartes posits or believes or defends innateness, and then Locke attacks him. Okay, and then Leibniz responds to John Locke, and then we have Chomsky. Okay, who actually is responsible for the revival of nativism, because by the time Chomsky came, to the forefront, the idea of nativism almost died out. Nobody believed that like we have innate ideas or something like that. I mean, there was a conception of human nature, but the academics didn't give it any much time. They said that it doesn't just matter. Nativism doesn't have any force. Their arguments are weak. They don't have any solid foundational premises. So Chomsky came and he actually gave a more and a newer defense of innateness. Okay, because he says that experiences available to language learners are far too little, okay, too sparse to account for their knowledge of their language. Therefore, we must have some innate ability to acquire language. Okay, and the argument of Chomsky is quite simple. Okay, if we put it in simple terms, Chomsky is saying that when a baby is acquiring a language, okay, the kid or the baby doesn't have the facility to acquire language. Language is so complex. It is so complicated. It is intricate. The grammatical structures, the syntax, the semantics, the pragmatics, the way we utilize language. It is so diverse. How does a child or a baby acquire a language? And Chomsky's answer was that because language is so complicated, it is not very plausible that a baby can just learn language. Okay, just no, not something like that. Chomsky says that there must be something inside humans that give them the quality to learn language, such complicated thing at such a young age. Okay, and based on this, he said that we must have innate ideas. We have some innate power to acquire language. Okay, and that is why he is a nativist as well. But if we consider the answer or the argument of Thomas Wright, we will learn that Chomsky's arguments seems quite banal, quite naive in a sense. Okay, matlab, how can I say this? Like Fuzul type. Okay, like matlab, from this perspective. Okay, from this perspective, it's not me who I'm saying this. From the perspective of Thomas Wright. Okay, because according to Wright, there is nothing special about learning language. You know why? Because human body is simply designed for this. Look, he gives a simple example. Okay, he says when we eat food, the stomach digests it. Okay, why? Because it is designed for digesting food. Okay, the brain can think. Why? Because the brain is designed for thinking. So just like that, humans are designed to acquire language. There is nothing special about it. Just like our stomach digests food, there is nothing special about the stomach. Just like we can walk on our legs, there is nothing special about the legs. Just like that, we can learn any language. There is nothing special, nothing innate about the acquisition of language. Okay? Or the perspective which I gave you right now is my own. I use the Thomas Radian lens to look at Chomsky. Okay, this is obviously he was born 200 or 300 years before Chomsky, so unfortunately he couldn't stand up from his grave to answer Chomsky, although it would have been very interesting. Acha, let us consider two final things, very interesting things. Okay, folk psychology, very interesting thing, and something new which I learned actually. So according to Peter Crothers, he argues that we have innate knowledge of the principles of folk psychology. Okay, now what is folk psychology? It is a network of common sense generalizations. Oh, difficult words. No. Generalizations means you learn a simple thing and then you automatically learn to apply that one idea in a lot of different contexts. Okay, so for example, okay, when you were a child, okay, your children, excuse me, when you were a child, your parents taught you to behave in a polite way. Okay, Now, your parents only taught you to act politely, but they didn't tell you when and where and why and how. Okay? Do you understand that? The parents don't specify every single thing to you. Instead, we simply learn that, oh, this is the time where I should be polite. Oh, this is the time when I don't need to be polite, really, And this is the time where I need to be a little polite, but not very much. So, according to Peter, he says that understanding such a complicated web of generalizations in a culture is it's not easy. Like, our brains cannot handle it, in a sense, unless we have some innate capacity, unless we have some innate quality or faculty to understand all these interlapping generalizations and all these overlapping spheres of culture. Okay, he says, if you look at the quotation, he concludes that the problem concerning the child's acquisition of psychological generalizations cannot be solved unless we suppose that much of full psychology is already innate, triggered locally by the child's experience of itself and others rather than learned. Okay, so this is an argument against empiricists who say that whatever we know is only through experience. We learned it. Peter disagrees. He says, no, we didn't learn them. We simply have them inside us. And finally, we will briefly consider my own response and also the problem with it, in my understanding. However, so now that we have instincts at least warrants. This is my own argument, okay? Because I think that if we have instincts, okay, and which nobody disagrees we have, okay, it is inconceivable that we don't have instincts. So we have instincts. Instincts का क्या मतलब? Simple response करना यार. Simple. If the car is about to hit you, you respond either by running or just standing in front of it and getting crushed. Unfortunately, so those are the two ways. So now we have instincts. This is given. But if we have instincts, it at least warrants. It at least says that we do in fact have certain innate ideas. You know why? Because instincts themselves are innate ideas. If you have instincts, it means you have innate ideas. Okay. For example, children are innately predisposed, okay, to loving their mother. If you look at the psychological experiments, all of them show that children love their mother a lot more. Why? This is something innate. This is completely innate, okay? And then also taking milk from the mother's breast, it's completely innate to them, because when a child is like 1 month old, it can take the milk from the mother's breast. Nobody taught the child to suck the milk from the mother's breast, and yet it can do that. Okay, so in my understanding, I think it does give some credit to the nativist camp that there are innate ideas. But the problem, with my argument, in my understanding, is that I think that nativism or innateness doesn't simply say whether we have innate ideas or not, but what it says is that if we have innate ideas and how those ideas help us understand the world, okay? And at least for now, I don't think that instinctual responses actually give any explanation of the word, although I have only provided a superficial explanation of my argument. So hopefully I will consider it further, inshallah, and perhaps in future lecture I can go over the details of my argument. But for now, that is the end of the session. So if you have any questions for me, this is the time to ask. Thank you very much. Okay, questions? Any questions? Yes, Tahir.
थैंक यू वेरी मच यासीन अहमद। यासीन, मेरा एक क्वेश्चन है, क्योंकि आपने जिस तरह कहा कि आइडियाज़ जनरेट होते हैं उस तरह ना, तो आपका इल्म के बारे में क्या ख्याल है? जिस तरह वो कुरान शरीफ में एक आयत भी है ना, अल्लाह सुब्हानहू व तआला फरमाता है कि वअल्लम आदम अल अस्माअल हुस्ना कुल्लहा ना। और दूसरी बात, इसी पे इकबाल का एक शेर भी है कि वो कहता है कि इस फिक्र खाकी में एक शे है सो तेरी, मेरे लिए मुश्किल है उससे किन कहूँ। तो इसके बारे में आपका क्या ख्याल है?
Okay, that's a very interesting question actually, and I think I forgot the name of the author. I think it's Doctor something. Actually, I forgot his name. Anyways, but if I answered your first question, which is related to وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ الْحُسْنَى, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught the names, okay, the name of things, basically of objects, to Adam alayhi salam. Then like, where do we fit this in the nature versus nurture, or the debate versus the innate versus non-innateness debate? And I think that will completely alter the debate's frame, okay? And the reason is because now we are looking at it from a theological perspective, okay? So if you consider the theology, then we simply accept the Quran as it is, okay? And we say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala simply taught Adam alayhi salam the things. But then, okay, it is my own understanding. If we say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught Adam alayhi salam the name of the things, okay, anything, all of the things, then it will again become a part of the empiricist project, because the empiricists will say, oh, of course, look at that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught Adam alayhi salam these objects. He didn't know them. He didn't know these names from the beginning. Instead, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught him. So Adam alayhi salam learned the responses, and because he learned these responses, the language, the objects, the names, therefore, all language, at least the major source of knowledge is the five senses, okay, the perceptual faculties of humans. And there is a lot of evidence. If you have heard this phrase that nazar haq hai, nazar haq hai, like seeing is believing. Even in English we have a saying for this, seeing is believing. And there is something very profound to the idea of experience. When we see something, when we taste something, it just have a different mode of knowledge. Things which you can learn through experience, you cannot learn through logic. But again, things which you can learn through logic are unfortunately not accessible through experience. So I think it will lead the debate into an entirely different domain. Okay, so that's one thing. And secondly, when you say that the line of Allama Iqbal, that there is something inside me, the basically the defense, or the overtaking, the caring of which I am responsible for. So this can be interpreted in two ways. Okay, the first one is in terms of intellect. Okay, basically that I have a mind. Okay, and I am thinking what to do with it. So that's one thing. But secondly, there's a second interpretation which I learned just 3 weeks ago actually, and it is this. Okay, Iqbal here is talking about the soul, ruh, because look, when the Jews from Medina came to the Prophet ﷺ, he asked him 3 questions, okay, and one of them was about the nature of soul. Ruh ki fitrat kya hai? What is the nature of soul? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed in the Quran that to the Prophet ﷺ, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that قُلِ الرُّوحَ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي. Okay, the ruh is the soul, is the amr of Allah. It is the like, amr is basically a hukam, command, but you can say like a gift in this sense. Okay, قُلِ الرُّوحَ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. I have given you very little knowledge of the soul. So the first thing we must remember is that our understanding of soul is very limited. We don't know anything. What is the nature of the soul? Is it a feeling? Is it something physical? Is it abstract? Is it like, what exactly is it? Right? So on the second interpretation, it will take the debate into another area, which will be about the soul. But if we remain in the first one, then once again we look at the religion, at the Quran, and the Hadith as well, and based on them we derive our conclusions. But if we don't consider these ayah and the Hadith, then we rely only on the philosophical arguments which I have presented, and there are many more actually. Okay. Any more questions? Yeah, you are welcome, inshallah. Okay. Does anybody want to add any point or comment? Okay. So I think that is enough for today's session, inshallah. And the session was still, I think, quite lengthy, although I reduced it. I didn't include the historians. I also didn't include evolutionary psychologists. I also ignored the ethnographers, which I mentioned, Anthony Giddens, and many others as well. I mentioned them before. Okay, and also sociologists uh, who have, a huge say in such ideas, because they are concerned with human nature, uh, human ideas, culture, civilization, group thinking, um, decision making. So their voice is crucial, but I guess that's for another time. So that is enough for today, inshallah, and I hope you guys learned something, and your feedback always helps, of course. This time I added the outline in my sessions, so I would like some feedback on that. Did you find it helpful? Was it useful to you? Or do you think, I should reduce the lecture size, or anything else? If you have ideas for topics as well, please also share them. I do remember them. And see you in the next session, inshallah. Allah Hafiz.
Okay, thank you so much, Yasin. Allah Hafiz.